Great. So welcome to everyone, both on Zoom and on Facebook. We're so glad to be together today to hear from Rebecca Orantes and her wonderful mentor, Elyse Goldstein. Before we start, I don't think we can gather today without taking a moment to remember the pain and suffering that we're all feeling, the heartbreak for all the racial injustice as well as coronavirus that's been causing such heartbreak. I don't think I have words to add to all the wonderful words other people have been saying, but I thought we might just take a moment of silence to reflect on where we are and to also be grateful that we can be together across continents and across races at this gathering. Okay, well, welcome again. We think of Kulanu as a worldwide community, and these programs, one of the silver linings of the coronavirus crisis is that it moved Molly, can you mute everybody? Molly, are you muting everyone? Okay, so we think of Kulanu as a worldwide community, and as I was saying, one of the silver linings of this current lockdown is that it motivated us to start having these programs that have been so well received, where we get together and hear from some of our community leaders. I'm thrilled to announce that our next program, which will be 2 weeks from today, we'll be mailing out the details, but will be our founders who are here, Jack and Diane Zeller and Aaron and Karen Primack, talking about the early days of Kulanu. As most of you know, Kulanu supports isolated, emerging, and returning Jewish communities around the world. And we're started in 1994 and have been at this ever since, constantly learning about additional communities. We hardly go a month, or certainly not a quarter of the year, without having a new community approach us or someone introduce us to another community that wants to be part of our network. And it's very inspiring work for us, and we're so glad to share it with you. Today's program is about the Adat Israel Jewish community, Reform Jewish community in Guatemala City. And I'm thrilled to introduce Rabbi Elyse Goldstein, who will introduce our speaker. In 2011, Rabbi Elyse Goldstein, the renowned rabbi of City Shul in Toronto, Ontario, accompanied a friend on a mitzvah trip to Guatemala. Their stay encompassed Shabbat, and upon research, they found out that there was a small community of Jews in Guatemala City who welcomed her group with warmth and open arms. As Rabbi Elyse says, it was the proverbial love at first sight. She agreed to become their volunteer rabbi, and 2 years later organized a conversion ceremony so that they could be recognized officially as Jews. If new people interested in Judaism seek out the community, she has helped to arrange learning programs for them, as well as welcoming anyone Jewish in Guatemala to join the congregation. She continues to guide the congregation through all the normal needs of any Jewish community. She also continues to serve as the volunteer rabbi for that community, known as Adat Israel, as well as the Guatemala coordinator for Kulanu. Kulanu and Adat Israel are deeply honored to have a rabbi of such depth of accomplishment mentor us. She was the founder of Kollel, the Adult Center of Liberal Jewish Learning, the first woman president of the multi-denominational Toronto Board of Rabbis, and past president of the Reform Rabbis of Greater Toronto, before starting City Shul 8 years ago. She has been awarded the highest honor in North America for Jewish education, the Covenant Award for Outstanding Educators. And I'm happy to turn this over to Rabbi Goldstein.
Thank you so much, Harriet, and thank you. Our relationship with Kulanu is very important to us, and it's just very special to be here with all these people from all over the world and to be able to interview the president of the congregation, Rebecca Orantes. Let me begin by saying that Rebecca probably is one of the youngest synagogue presidents we've ever met throughout the world. And that bodes well for Adat Israel and their future. Rebecca began her leadership very early in the congregation in two ways. First, in gathering and organizing and galvanizing the young people to form like a sort of a youth group or young people's group and to get involved. And the second is that, as you'll find out at the end of this session, she has a beautiful voice and she began to train herself to lead services. As Harriet mentioned, I'm the volunteer rabbi. I live in Toronto full-time and have a congregation here that I also started. And I do try and visit Guatemala every year or every other year and lead services and celebrate holidays. I've been there for Passover. I did a Seder with them one year, which was great. And one year I actually snuck in a lulav and an etrog for Sukkot. Remember that, Rebecca? And getting it past the customs officials was very much fun, and trying to explain that it's a palm and a thing, and it's for our celebration. And when I have gone, depending on the year and the needs of the community, if new people have studied in our courses that we try and organize every year or every other year and have come weekly and regularly to the congregation, then I do bring a bit din, and we do weekend conversions, meaning that after a year, 2, 3, sometimes 4 years of study, the potential new members of Adat Israel meet with a bet din and do immerse in our makeshift, if you will, mikvah. We can tell you more about that later. And we were honored in our last conversion process to have Jeff Sippen, filmmaker, with us, and he actually filmed this incredible weekend, and I believe it's still on the Kulanu website. Is that right, Harriet?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so it's beautiful.
Kulanu.org/film or Kulanu.org/Guatemala.
Thank you so much. And you can go any point and see this wonderful film. But I want to begin the interview with Rebecca with a very important piece of our history. And that is, although we began our relationship by my guiding conversions, it has grown into the normal rabbi-congregant relationship since then. And Adat Israel prides itself on having moved from being known as a community of converts to being the Reform Synagogue of Guatemala. And that is a very important shift in thinking for both the community itself, and I do spend a lot of time when I'm visiting there helping the community also shift their own thinking from we are a group of converts to we are the Reform Synagogue in Guatemala. And it's also a shift for those outside the community who either get to know them by visiting Guatemala and finding out there's a Reform Synagogue there through the World Union and its website, or who contact me when they hear that I have some connection with Guatemala. And I think that we're very proud of that. Rebecca and I both are very proud of that shift in thinking both inside the community and outside the community, because conversions are not our goal. We're not a conversions are us kind of operation. So Rebecca, that's going to be my first question to you this afternoon. Tell us about that development and how you personally continue to move Adat Israel forward into being the Reform Synagogue of Guatemala.
Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you so much for making this happen, and thank you so much, Rabbi Elyse. It's a big honor for me to have you ask me this question questions. I look up to you, always will. So thank you so much for making this happen, to Kulanu too. Yeah, I will love to answer you in a very simple way, but I think you said it wonderfully. It was a change of mindset. And I just want to clarify immediately that Adat Israel is not the same community from 2 years ago. Something has indeed changed within people's minds and how they view themselves with their identity, with their Jewish identity. And how have I, helped them in this whole process? I think it all began with really truly questioning and looking at our identity of who we are and starting to think critically of the type of Jews we want to be and our reality and our relationship with Judaism and our relationship with our community. In other words, I think when we take our identity in our own hands and see it for what it is, there's a chance for development. And to be able to see what we have, it takes courage, if I'm honest with you, because we're not the same as any other Jewish community around the globe. And that has empowered our members to think and believe that they are indeed a key part of the community and become active. Something I have noticed even from when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, I would usually perceive from people, and by no means I'm saying these are facts, but this is what I could perceive from people, was that there was always this tiny doubt within people's minds and souls if they were really Jewish, and at times I could sometimes feel from the grown-ups that perhaps they didn't even believe it themselves, and that raises the question, why, what are we comparing ourselves to? Why, who has the standard, and I began digging this issue within myself, and I understood that, we're different, right? And I started embracing those differences. So my job has been to encourage people to think critically about who they are and who we want the community to be. And that has also led to people starting to take initiative into projects and things people stand for. I have seen this shyness usually from people who become Jews by choice, that they feel they don't have the right to care about certain things or the right to explore certain topics. And to that I say, what are you waiting for? I remember I shared this Devar Torah once in my community, and I addressed the question. I was like, what are we waiting for to start really exploring our identity? And I said, are we waiting for the Jewest of them all, the person who's the Jewest of them all, which I'm very interested to see how that person looks like and behaves. That's a whole topic itself. Are we waiting for this type of people to come knock on our doors and say, oh, you can care now, oh, you can start studying, or you can start develop your own identity? And to that I said, no, it all begins internally. And this is a very interesting process, the one that takes place. So I'm a strong believer that self-recognition should begin first, so then external recognition can reinforce that, our identity. So this is absolutely, it was not planned. It was not step one, step two. It all happened organically. And now that I look back, I noticed this is what happened. People kind of woke up. And I have people who have devoted a lot of their time into the community. We have somebody who has dedicated herself to the children. And thanks to her, people, the children are growing up with a more enhanced experience of their Jewish environment, because let's face it, being a Jew in Guatemala, it's complicated. We don't have as many options as, I don't know, in the US, and of course not Israel, right? And again, somebody else come up right now some months ago with the idea of a group for women. She got inspired by some study groups that were happening outside Guatemala, in other communities. And she said, why aren't we doing this? Let's do this. And we're working together now. And we have developed so many awesome projects and programs within the community that are helping people reinforce that identity. And I want to close up this question, the answer to this question, by again saying we're not the same people from 2 years ago, and I see it. We're still in this transition. It hasn't concluded yet, and probably we will always be in this transition. But I'm quite proud of them, really, and I'm happy I helped them or I inspired them into, diving in into who they are as individuals.
Thank you so much. And I see that development too, and it's very exciting for me. And I'm also really interested in the way you talk about we are different. And, one of those interesting differences, I think, for us in the Reform movement is that you may be one of the very few Sephardic congregations in the Reform movement identified as Sephardic. And it was important to us that we identified the congregation as Sephardic, even those who are born Jews, might be Ashkenazic in their background, are coming into the Sephardic congregation because you are Latin American. And that was, I think, an important decision we all made. And, even your name, even the name of the congregation, not having being more Hebrew and not having a lot of English in it. So let's talk a little bit about this Guatemalan identity, which you have in Adat Israel so beautifully developed. Can you tell me a little bit about how you meld together or adapt Guatemalan identity into Jewish identity through the use of art, food, literature, textiles? How would I know when I walk into Adat Israel on Shabbat that I'm in Guatemala?
Sure. Okay, the first thing that comes to mind is language. Language plays a big role in the development of the community. So we speak Spanish, we're a Spanish-speaking country. Therefore, our prayers are in Spanish. And we have been very, very honored to have a Sidurim who were donated by the Reform community in Costa Rica, Adat Israel, and we have been using their prayer book for so long. And this prayer book is in Spanish, English, and Hebrew. And a lot of people love it because when we have visitors, they can pray with us. They don't get lost. So language is a big one, 100%. We do have Hebrew in it. Don't worry, we sing Debbie Friedman and Jeff Kepler in our prayers and everything, but most of it it's in Spanish. Other scenarios where we have to adapt our Guatemalan culture to our Jewish identity has been, the first one that comes to mind is Sukkot. We have such a big issue with Sukkot, and it's almost too funny, to be honest. In Sukkot, it's rainy season in Guatemala. So we're trying to build a sukkah under the rain, and then we have to cover it with translucent plastic nylon, right? So we can inhabit it. And I'm going to mention a little bit something about the Reform movement later on after this. But, we have to the circumstances. And for example, you said it yourself, one year you came, you have to bring lulav in the truck with you and, be careful with the customs so they would not take it away from you. So we don't have the same plants in Guatemala, the same plants that grow in Israel. So what we have decided to do all these years has been to look for plants and trees from the same family as the one that halachically are custom, are the norm. And then we adapt those things into a Guatemalan ritual. And I want to give a big shout out to the Reform movement and how Reform Judaism has inspired us and has given us the flexibility and the acceptance to be able to adapt our Guatemalan culture into our Judaism, which I think if we were from another different, branch of Judaism, we would struggle a little bit more. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I think Reform Judaism has worked the best for us. For Pesach, I think my mom began this tradition when she does charaset. She puts, apples and wine, cinnamon, and I think she adds a paste of beans, and that has become a very standard charaset recipe in the community, and people love it, and it tastes like chocolate, so people like it a lot. That's one. The other one I can think of is we have this wonderful person in our community. Her name is Flor, and Flor, she's a great cook. She bakes challah for her family for Friday night, and then she brings 2 chalot for the community so we can do kiddush after shacharit services. and she's a great cook. Every time she cooks Guatemalan dishes. So we know that when Shacharit is over and everyone says Shabbat Shalom, we know when a great plate of Guatemalan stew will be waiting for us with tortillas, so that's so meaningful to us. And the other thing we have that makes our community Guatemalan is Judaica, all these different ritual elements we use in our daily prayers or ceremonies have something Guatemalan in it. So an example would be the bima, the aron we have. It has jade in it, and jade is a Mayan stone. And the Torah covers, that both Torah covers that we have, thanks to Rabbi Elyse, are made with Mayan fabric, and they're so beautiful. And that helps, reaffirm the identity, the Guatemalan identity within our Jewish context. So yeah.
So that charoset recipe that your mother invented, in a way, has become known as Guatemalan charoset. And just a year before Passover, it gets spread around on the internet.
Really?
Yeah. Somebody asked for the recipe, and you can just Google Guatemalan charoset. It's all over the internet. You can find it.
Really? That's awesome. That's crazy.
I discovered is that guacamole makes a really good charoset too. It's the same consistency. One thing I want to add, Rebecca, is, for me, coming as an Ashkenazic North American rabbi to the community, it's been wonderful for me to help the community think of ways to make sure that its ritual objects represent the fact that it's not an Ashkenazic North American congregation. So you mentioned Torah covers, which both are made of Mayan fabric, and which my congregation in Toronto has a matching bima cover of the red one. So that's really beautiful. And the other thing is that we have kippot. So, most of us have these Guatemalan kippot. Most of the congregation does as well. My husband's Guatemalan kippah, which was actually just a hat that he bought in the marketplace. I don't Goldstein or wherever. And we also, we talked in the community about making challah covers out of Guatemalan fabric. This one actually was made for me by a member of the congregation. So the use of Guatemalan fabric is very normative in our congregation, which is very exciting. And Rebecca, thank you for mentioning, how important it was for the community to choose Reform Judaism. Somebody asked, why Reform? And I think from the moment we met each other, it was obvious that if I was going to work with the community, it was going to be a Reform community. And one of the important things that we did as a community is apply for membership in the World Union of Progressive Jews, which is the worldwide organization of Reform congregations. And that helped us, don't you think, move from this Jews by Choice congregation to just a regular Reform congregation in Guatemala. So I think that was an important development for us as well. I want to talk a little bit about what it's like to be Jewish in Guatemala, not just a member of Adat Israel, but Jews are a definite minority in an identifiably Christian country, identifiably evangelical and Catholic. We have some challenges with Messianics who like to adapt and adopt Jewish symbols, the Talit, the shofar. Everywhere I go in Guatemala, I always have a lot of fun seeing the El Shaddai gas stations and the Elohim tiendas and the Yahweh ice cream trucks. And all these pictures for evangelical churches of a guy in a talit blowing a shofar welcoming you to the iglesia. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how it feels to be a minority in an identifiably Christian country. I want you to tell me how that manifests itself. How do you deal with other Jews in Guatemala, other congregations of Jews in Guatemala? Are there any Muslims? How do you deal with Christians? How do you deal with Messianics? Has Adat Israel experienced anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism? And how do you deal with other Jews who are coming from other parts of the world? You're constantly welcoming visitors from other communities who are tourists, not now, of course, but tourists. having. So that's a big question. Being Jewish in Guatemala, go for it.
Okay. Oh gosh. I hope I got this all. Okay. Regarding visitors, there's something very interesting in American Judaism, which is it tends to be more traditional than other parts of the world. So when we have visitors and they, experience our services, they say, "Well, you're quite conservative," and we're like, "No, we're very reformed here," So that's a very interesting thing to consider. Yeah, regarding anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. Okay, so our community hasn't really suffered from anti-Semitism. And if I'm honest with you, I believe it's because ignorance. People don't know what a Jew is in Guatemala. And that has happened to me throughout my whole life, throughout, me being in school, college, nobody knew what a Jew was. So it's hard for people to hate something they don't know what it is. And that has been a benefit for us in a way. Now, regarding Zionism, there's a very strong Zionist sentiment in the country. And the reason why is because Guatemala has had this close bond with Israel since the beginning. We are the country who had the last vote to either vote in favor or against the state of Israel, and we vote in favor. So there's a plaza in the city that commemorates this alliance, this relationship. It's called, I think, yeah, it has a big Magen David, and it's a sign, it's a symbol of the bond we share with them. And these Zionist ideas and feelings are highly represented in Christian people and their churches and how they perceive the state of Israel. And if I'm honest, I want to also say that some parts of Latin America have this quite idealized idea of the state of Israel. And you can read it in the comments when something happens regarding Israel, and people, what they write are very romantic wishes and hopes and blessings for the state of Israel, which by no means this is wrong. I don't want to get political, but I think we all know as Jews that sometimes it can be quite tricky, our relationship with Israel. And these are things people don't know, and that's okay, So there's a strong Zionist sentiment in the country. And yes, this Zionist feeling also transfers to Messianic people. Messianics, for those who don't know, and also as Rabbi Elyse said, are basically Christians who adopt customs and practices, Jewish practices, into their beliefs. So they wear talitot and they wear kippot and they use the shofar. And some months ago, I was in my house, and when all this curfew thing started, because we're in a curfew right now, I could hear a shofar playing at 4 p.m. every single day. And I was like, there's no way that can be one of us, like there must be a Messianic person around in the neighborhood, because I'm the only Jew, I think, in my neighborhood. There's another person too, though, but he goes to a different community. So, but that's an issue, So we are trying to be very careful with how we manage our relationship with Messianic Jews. Regarding other Jewish communities, yeah, there are other Jewish communities in the country. There's an Orthodox one, there's a Sephardic one. We have Chabad. We also have Chabad in the countryside. They tend to look for places where tourists go. And yeah, if we have a relationship with them, it's just pure respect because we're very different. And that's all I can tell you about it.
Thank you for that. Let's just spend a little sidebar, Rebecca, because there's a lot of questions about reaching out to other people who might be interested in Judaism and Bnei Anusim. I think it's important for people on this call to know that Adat Israel does not identify as having roots in Bnei Anusim or having roots in Jews before the Spanish Inquisition, and neither does it go out looking for other people to convert. So can you just spend a moment talking about what happens if someone does approach the community who is not Jewish by birth and has an interest in Judaism? Just spend a moment on that.
Right. So there's a process that takes place when someone approaches us. And first of all, we see the intentions of the person. Usually people approach with, a very romantic idea of Judaism. and you're the people of God, and I want to belong and be part of the tribe. And they use very Christian language to express their interest. And then we say, look, if you're very interested, here are some resources, ritual stuff. There's a whole process. Then we can, talk. And most of the time, I'm gonna say probably 98% of the time, people don't come back. Once they really start digging into what Judaism is, they don't come back. People who do though, well, we just talk, we have an interview, we say this is who we are, this is what it is. We kind of try to ground them a little bit into what Judaism is, because it's a big change. It's a big change. And if they like it, they spend like a year at least with the community, and to see if we like each other. And that's something I want to kind of point out, that belonging to a community, I think it's a relationship. It shouldn't be just, oh, this big organization and here I am, I'm so tiny, and this organization has to do everything for me. Not at all. It's a relationship. It's equal give and take, and also people, if they like that, if they agree with this concept, then they stay and they indeed give. And when I mean giving, I don't mean economically. I mean, sure, that's helpful, but what are you going to do for the community? And if they like it, if we like each other, if it works, if they agree, and if they're growing, then they become members of the community. But it's a process. It takes years usually for this to happen.
Thanks, Rebecca. That's important for people to hear. And I think this is a good moment for us to just pause. As I mentioned, there's a 19-minute film, which was done by Jeff Sippen Productions with the support of Kulanu. So it's very dear to us. And it's a dear relationship, which we have with Kulanu that helped us bring this film to light. So we're going to just show a very small 2-minute trailer. It does talk about this process of conversion in the community, and then we'll come back and do some final questions.
Believe it or not, I had a dream.
Encontramos la necesidad de buscar nuevas respuestas.
In my dream, I saw a rabbi that was on top of the hill, and she was with the chauffeur. I didn't know it was a chauffeur at the time.
Adat Israel is my family, and I feel it the first day that I came here.
I didn't know it was. I was dreaming about Rosh Hashanah. So that's what it was like a call. It was my calling. I said I had to do this.
In Guatemala, believers are in the majority, but religious affiliation is on the move. Many Catholics have embraced evangelical Christianity and other non-Catholic denominations. This is the story of a congregation that experienced over 50% growth in one weekend. Adat Israel, the country's only Reformed Jewish congregation, was founded in 2005. Over time, it grew to 30 members, all of them Jews by choice. And with 19 people completing their conversion in January 2019, the next chapter has begun for the new Jews of Guatemala.
Some people say, really? They're choosing to be Jewish? And other people say, that's amazing. Why are they doing this?
It's not about, they read a book somewhere and they thought Judaism was interesting. It is about wanting to change their lives fundamentally and take on a new system of life and a new system of belief and a new system of practice. And they are passionate about it.
Some of these people just have Jewish neshamas, Jewish souls. I think there are just some people who are called to be Jewish.
Es como regresar a donde siempre pertenecí y estuve ausente. Y solamente espero el momento en que puedan decirme por fin bienvenido de regreso a tu pueblo. Oh, sí,
several years of study, a written exam, a baked in, the rabbinical court, hatafat dam brit, a drop of blood from the men, and mikveh, ritual immersion for everyone, Adat Israel welcomed its newest members, Los Nuevos Judíos de Guatemala.
And it's complete.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Molly. As I said, that was our last large conversionary experience, but as Rebecca says over and over again, our synagogue has really changed, developed. There's new members. Some of the old members have left and done other things, and we are constantly growing without reaching out and saying to people, hey, are you interested in Judaism? Why don't you come to Adat Israel? That is really not the modus operandi of our congregation, at least. Of course, we do welcome anybody who does want to come in and learn about it. So Rebecca, I want to turn back to asking just our last two questions, and they're pretty serious and deep, so thank you for sharing with us. And we talked a little bit about the organizations that Adat Israel is part of, Kulanu being such an important part of our lives, and also the World Union for Progressive Judaism, the worldwide reform movement. You're involved with Netzer, which is the Reform Youth Organization. You attended the URJ Biennial in Boston and saw your first snow, if I remember correctly. And so you've gotten a lot of the community has really become a normative part of the reform world for us. So that leads me to our two last questions, which I'm asking you as our Latin American representative of the reform community. First of all, let's talk about COVID. How has COVID affected your community? How are you managing? What are you doing to keep the community thriving during this very tough time?
So COVID has affected us as probably as just like any other community around the world. We are following health regulations, social distancing, wearing face masks. Nobody's going to the community anymore, which I just want to point out and say openly how proud I am of our members, because everyone is paying their membership. So I'm amazed by it. So thank you so much. If anyone from Adat Israel is watching this, which I hope, thank you so much for allowing us to keep having the community. So what have we done? We just moved to a digital platform. We're having services in Zoom, and we just developed a very close bond to the Reform Puerto Rican community, which is called Temple But Shalom. And both communities share a lot of things in common, and this union wouldn't have happened if, ironically, this whole virus thing wouldn't have started. So that's how we are doing things. We are trying to keep the community active by sharing study sessions and conferences and services that, thanks to the UJR, which is the Latin American version of the URJ, thanks to them and the WPJ, we have been able to keep the community active and learning and engaged. So those are the things we have done so far.
Great. We'll take some questions from the side chat, but I want to end because I was so moved by Harriet's opening in recognition of the racist violence that the United States and other countries are experiencing. None of us really are free of it. So I don't want to be smug and say here in Canada we don't have this problem, and in Guatemala we don't have this problem. I'd like you, Rebecca, to reflect a little bit on racism in Guatemala. First of all, racism outside of the community, perhaps towards the community, because not everyone in the community is white, and in fact many Latin Americans identify as people of color, and many people in the congregation identify as people of color. Racism towards the community and racism within the community, if you're willing to step on some hard stuff.
Look, it's yeah, we're Latin American. right? And that means we are not Ashkenazi, right? We said it previously, we identify with Sephardic Judaism, but we're Latin American, we're not white Jews. And I'm going to focus this a little bit within a Jewish context. And there is this standard that all Jewish communities have, which is, Ashkenazi Judaism. And I have absolutely nothing against it. But it's hard to fit in a box that was not made for you. And we share certain things in common, and that help us connect and relate to each other. But we don't look like Ashkenazi Jews. We're brown Jews, we're Latin American, some Latinos, and that plays a big role, and if I'm completely honest with you, I don't know if this is racism, I don't know if it has to do with probably has to do with our background, most probably, yeah, but we have a big issue with recognition, being recognized as Jews. And when you say, oh, there's this community in Guatemala, Reform, everyone is a Jew by choice, that definitely raises some eyebrows, like, how do we know they're Jewish enough? How do we know they're real Jews? Like, how do we know they know? These type of questions are so interesting. I've done it myself too. I caught myself doing it too. And I think we need to start really thinking about, there are different ways to experience Judaism and different ways that Judaism looks like. And some days ago I was reading this article about Ethiopian Jews, Jews of color back in the Middle East. And it amazed me how they also have a different way of doing their own Jewish rituals. And I realized, whoa, we have been having this system for centuries, basically, of Ashkenazi Judaism, rabbinical Judaism, and it works. That's why we keep it. But it's not the norm. I always get people very surprised when I tell them I'm from Guatemala and I'm Jewish. Like they don't believe it. How did it happen? But I don't want to mistake surprise and innocence and lack of knowledge for racism. So I personally am trying to be very careful not to mix those two. Within the community, we do have people who have indigenous background, and to say, and I said this some days ago, and to say that I don't, it's ignorance. Like, I don't know if I do, but to say that I don't completely, and I'm so different from everybody else, I don't think that works. And I don't think that's working anymore. It's a lack of consideration, lack of awareness and consciousness, social consciousness. So yeah.
Thank you. I'm just going to end with one personal question, Rebecca, if that's okay. First of all, tell us what you love. Okay, it's a larger question than just one. Just tell us a little bit how old the community is and how many people are in it now, although that's fluctuating like any synagogue. I can't tell you how many members we have at any given time, even in my congregation, because we're always getting new members and other members are leaving. But tell us a little bit just, logistically about the community, the age range and where people are coming from. We do have Jews by choice and born Jews in the community. So you could say a bit about that. And I want you to end with, what do you love most about Adat Israel?
Sure. So Adat Israel has been around for, I think we're turning 15 years this year. Sorry about that. It's my dryer. Yeah, we've been around for 15 years, officially registered in the state of Guatemala. But the community and has been going on for probably 1999. So it's been a while. We have been here for a while. And our members we have 30 members. Everyone is active. Everyone is meaningful. Everyone is important in the community. Everyone has something to do in it. Trust me. That's what I can tell you about the community. Have our in them most people are over 40, right? Over 40 years old, and we do have youth. Our youth is very variable. We have 2 teenagers, we have 2 pre-teenagers, and then we have 2 kids under the age of 9, I believe. So it's very it varies, honestly, but that's who we are. And what I love the most about Adat Israel is how willing they are to learn and explore and try new things. Like, I think I personally have been blessed with such amazing people who are willing to try and willing to question and to change. And I told somebody some months ago, close friend of mine, that for me, Adat Israel is like clay. You know, you can build anything you want with it and people will love it. And it takes a lot of responsibility to know this, you know, and balance. And that's what I love the most about Adat Israel, that I know it would not stay stagnant, that I know it will keep growing, and it's still growing.
Thank you. So lovely to be able to be with you, not have to be in Guatemala. Although I'd love you to come to Toronto. Rebecca, I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions before we close up. And I think we're going to see, Molly, I don't know if we're going to see another piece of Rebecca singing, but did we see that piece in the trailer? Molly's going to have to let me know on the side chat. I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions from the chat function. Can you talk a little bit, can you talk a little bit about other Latin American congregations, not in Guatemala, but other Latin American associations you have?
Yes. We're so proud to be part of the UJR, which is Unión Judía Reformista de Latinoamérica. And we have been working with wonderful communities in Argentina, in Brazil, in Costa Rica, in Chile. And I'm so excited personally, I think you can tell, with these new interactions. We are beginning, especially now with COVID, to have more dialogue between the communities. And they have allowed us to participate in programs, in study sessions, in services, as I said before. And that has helped us feel more at home. And we're starting to build a stronger bond with these communities in Latin America. So yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. Thank you for that. I think we answered all the questions about B'nai Anusim. We talked a little bit about, tell a little bit about any combination youth programming you do.
Any what, pardon me?
Youth programming that you do in combination with other Latin American.
Okay, so youth hasn't been moving as fast as I wish it has. We started having dialogues taking time, and that's awesome. But nothing has yet concreted yet. So it's still a work in progress, but it's happening. I can tell you that about youth.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, and so there's some dire conditions in Guatemala that are forcing thousands of people to immigrate to the United States. Has the congregation been impacted by that?
Has there been, can you repeat the question, please?
We hear that there are some really dire situations in Guatemala, economic, that are forcing thousands of people to try and immigrate to the United States. And I just want to know if the congregation has had any experience with that.
Well, we do have. There were some youth that I grew up with, and they, based on economical decisions, decided to immigrate to America. Right, that was like 5 years ago, I believe, 3 years ago. Right now, currently, nothing has really affected the community in that sense.
Okay, great, thank you. Some people, I would ask everyone to please put their question on the chat function rather than the raise hand function. It's easier for us that way. So the people who have raised their hand, if they could just put their question on the chat function. We'll see, we only have another minute or two. We have talked about the video. Again, the site of that video is on the Kulanu website, and people can find it there. And we have, we're going to stop now. If you have additional questions, you can put them on the chat function, but Molly's going to share with us just a couple of pictures and slides from the community.
Oh, okay. Okay, so this is, if I'm honest, I think my favorite picture of Adat Israel and Rabbi Elyse. And you can see Jeff, Jeff sitting in the corner with his camera. And it's a beautiful picture. I think it just represents the hunger for learning and people embracing their identity with the help of Rabbi Elyse. I love this picture so much. It's my favorite one. Oh, this is when we did our Passover Seder. We decided to do our Seder online, right, because of COVID. And I remember I did the Haggadah, the whole Haggadah for this service in like 3 days. And amazingly, people participated in it, and everyone had a part to read. This one is when we're having this mitzvah day now in Adat Israel. It's our second year, and we help a community near Antigua, Guatemala, to help to build houses for them, and we're volunteers in it. And this is Hanukkah 2019, and all those little Hanukkot you see in the front were done by the children, and it was a very nice picture. I think my dad took this picture. It's very nice. Oh, this is Purim, and we take it seriously in Adat Israel. Like, everyone has to wear a costume, and this is this was this year's Purim. And this is when Rabbi Elyse was with us 2 years ago. I don't know if they can see this in the documentary. I believe it's so. It's the weddings of two couples in the community. Very nice, very meaningful.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Can we just
Jeff says that, the wedding is in the documentary. Yeah.
So it's fun when I get there, I get to everybody get a Jewish wedding, and I've named babies, which is really fun. Sometimes it has to wait till I get there, so the baby is more like a year and a half old, but it's great fun. Before we end, if you could please, Rebecca, just tell us a little bit about the leadership grant, the leadership fellowship program that you got to do, which is to Israel.
Oh yeah. So I was part of the Roswell Klal Israel Fellowship. Is that what you're talking about? Mm-hmm. Yeah. A great program, amazing program. It's done in collaboration with the biggest progressive organizations in the world, thanks to the URJ, the WPJ, and the IMPJ, Israel World Union in America, in North America. And it talks about, it's about, gathering all these young adults who are active leaders within their communities or within what they care the most. And they put us together, and we traveled to 3 different places around the globe to learn about Reform Judaism and what, the efforts are to the challenges this communities face. And meanwhile, we work in a project for our community. So we get inspiration everywhere. So that program changed my whole life, basically, and the people that I was with, and so meaningful. I highly recommend the program for, anybody who's Reform and has youth and wants to get more involved in community building or standing for whatever they want to stand, because we were leaders. Religious leaders were part of it, political leaders were part of it, educational leaders were also youth leaders. It was everything, everybody, and I loved it. It was very special to me. It still is. Mm-hmm.
Rebecca, and before we end, we only have 2 more minutes. Tell us a little bit about your plans for your Jewish future.
Oh God, my Jewish future or our Jewish future as a community?
Our Jewish future. How are you?
Oh my goodness.
Doing this?
Okay, so I think it's pretty obvious. I've been leading services since I was 14 years old, and I had great mentors, both my parents, who, by the way, are also the founders of the community. And I've always been within leadership, and now I'm the president. So it's, I think, really obvious that rabbinical school is like an obvious option to go and strive towards. So that's happening. I began my application process this year. So I'm learning Hebrew right now. Wish me luck with that because it's a journey, and it's happening. Yeah, that's what I'm doing with me.
I didn't want to embarrass you, but I had to share my nachas. Ashkenazic white people say, my nachas in that Adat Israel will have its first rabbi, which has been really the greatest testament to the growth of the community and to work together. So thank you. Are there ways that the community can help Adat Israel? The best way to do that is through Kulanu. So you be in touch with me. I'll just put my email on this chat function if that's okay, Harriet, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much to both of you, to Elyse, Rabbi Elyse, and to future Rabbi Rebecca. We will be very, very proud. We are already very, very proud. Before some closing remarks, we just made a 1 minute and 26-second video about Kulanu in general, and Molly's going to share that.
Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Oh, Davinu Chai, oh, Davinu Chai, oh, Davinu Chai, oh, Yisrael.
I think that, I don't think we posted that yet, so I think you're the first people in the world to have witnessed that video. Thank you to Bonnie Sussman and Molly Levine for making it.
Harriet, can I take just one more second to just mention one thing before we close, and that is that other rabbis have been privileged to serve Adat Israel, although I'm their official volunteer rabbi. Rabbi Mike Lotker, who's on today's call, I don't know, there may be other rabbis who are on today's call. We do send rabbis with the help of Kulanu every high holidays. Since I'm here in my community, I can't go there for the high holidays. So there've been maybe 8, 9, even 10 rabbis that have had the privilege to serve. And we're especially grateful to the Union for Reform Judaism for the donation of a kosher Torah, which we dedicated 2 years ago. Sorry, Harriet, I just didn't want to leave without mentioning the other rabbis.
Great. And so thank you again. And before we say goodbye, I want to take this time to personally thank all those of you who've donated to Kulanu over the years. Your continued support has meant so much to all of our Kulanu communities. In these challenging times when we can't be sure what turns the economy will take, your support is needed now more than ever. Each community has immediate needs, and some of these needs are of an emergency nature. We thank you in advance for whatever you can do to ease these financial burdens. Many thanks to all of you. You can donate through going to our website. HTTPS makes it secure, but anyway, kulanu.org/donate. And or you can, and that will also tell you if you prefer to mail a check how to do that. And we really thank you for your support. So now Molly's gonna break us randomly into breakout rooms if you'd like to visit and get to know some of this wonderful audience better.